Hey y'all, this is Christy Cook from Teadoddles. Today I'm going to show you how to combine two different types of yarn and two different weights of yarn. I know a lot of people will hold two strands of yarn together to crochet, but most of the time what I've seen is they're the same type of yarn usually. I posted a picture on Instagram a couple of days ago, and someone had a question about how I did that. So I thought I'd do a little video. It may be something someone's already done, but I'm going to do it anyway, and maybe you'll learn something you didn't see in a different one. I don't know. But today, what I'm combining today is this silk mohair. It's 70% Super Kid mohair and 30% silk. It came from Lion Brand yarns, and this one also came from Lion Brand yarns. This is Heartland in the colorway Pinnacle. This is a 100% acrylic yarn. This is one that I got from the Hobby Lobby clearance sale. That's why you see that sticker on there. This color is Sunset. So these are two different fibers as well as two different weights of yarn. This is a super fine number 1, and this is a medium number 4, or worsted weight. So I really like the two colors together. My intent is to make a coat out of them. I needed something a little bulkier than the number 4, and this was just right, and it gives it a nice little fluff that'll be nice and warm in the winter time. I've already caked 2 skeins of this up, and I was surprised when I did this because I ran out of the acrylic Pinnacle yarn first, and there is 251 yards of it and only 231 yards of the kid mohair. But I had a nice little pile of the mohair left over, which I didn't expect. I expected to run out of it first, but I think it's just because it doesn't stretch as much. You'll notice they don't, which seems like it still would have run out faster, but they had some give to it, but it's not quite as stretchy as the acrylic. But that's the way it worked out. So you never know how that's actually going to work out, because sometimes that yardage is a little off. So you just may want to buy extra especially when you combine 2 yarns for a project, because you may wind up needing more than what you thought you needed. I just usually, if I'm going to combine 2 for a project, I'll buy an extra skein of each, just to be sure that I wind up with the amount I need for the project. So you don't have to cake them up together. I find this is easier when I'm crocheting to pull from 1 skein versus 2. You can just put them both in a bag. I've done that in the past, and hold them together and crochet as you go along. I prefer the skein because I can also put it on my yarn butler, my little spinny yarn butler when I'm crocheting, and everything stays in place and I can just crochet away. So either if you're pulling from the skein, a cake you've made, or the 2 skeins, you just put the 2 pieces of yarn together, ends to end, just like this, and you're just gonna crochet with it as if you're holding 1 strand of yarn, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and put my slip knot in the end. Some people do that with their crochet hook. I prefer to do mine by hand. And we'll pull it on up. Got a number 7, or a 7 millimeter hook here, because this is the pattern that I'm using requires there to be the stitches should be lofty, is what it says, which means that you don't want tight stitches. So you're going to use a bigger hook than you would normally, even with this yarn. So you just start chaining away, and you just pull both threads through as you go along. And the comment that I got on Instagram was that it looked like the smaller yarn was knotted around the larger yarn, which it just looks that way because it's held together with the larger yarn, and it kind of lands wherever it's gonna land. You can't really, there's not too much you can do to have control over it landing in the same spot every time you make a stitch. That's gonna vary, but I like the way that looks. You do want to watch when you're pulling through that you're grabbing both pieces of yarn and pulling through the stitch, and that you're not leaving out a loop here. Sometimes if you're crocheting, I know I like to watch Netflix or something when I'm crocheting, and I'll realize I've grabbed one piece of it or the other piece, or when I pull through I've sorry, my dog, she thinks she needs to tell me something. But you just want to make sure you're grabbing both yarns as you go. When you crochet with yarns of the same weight and fiber, that's a little bit easier to see what you're doing. But when you crochet with two, it's especially such a smaller thread or yarn than the other, you just want to be sure you're grabbing all of it when you pull it. And that's another reason I like to have it caked, because the tension on the yarn won't be as great if you're pulling from a bag from two different skeins, because I found that if I try to put them in two separate bags or two separate areas, that makes it worse than if I just have them in two bags, or if I have them caked. I like this better. This just makes the whole process a lot easier, and it helps me keep tension correct on my stitches. And you can see as we go down with that yarn that your stitches, where it lands in your stitches is going to be different every time. And that's just the way it wraps around the yarn as you're pulling it through. If you're looking for it to be the same every time, that's probably not going to happen. That'd be almost impossible to try to keep that. That would be very, I mean, I'm not going to say you couldn't do it, but it would be very time consuming, and I think that would make it less enjoyable for me personally if I was trying to make my smaller thread land in the same place every time. So when you get ready to go back and do some, you see right there where when I was pulling up the stitch, I hope y'all can see that I grabbed the loop of the other thread right there. So that's what you want to watch for, because when you have that extra thread in there, you just have to be conscious. You have to pay attention a little more to where your hook's going into the stitch. For the most part, this has been a pretty smooth transition with this thread. It really didn't make it harder to crochet with or anything like that. It's just sometimes it gets hooked in the wrong place, and you just want to pay attention to that. Pay attention that you're getting both pieces of yarn actually in your stitch, and that you're pulling your yarn through everything in the stitch and not leaving something out. If you do leave something out, it's probably not going to be such a big deal, because you'll have one piece of yarn or the other holding on. It may make a pucker in your work, but otherwise it's just the same to me as crocheting with one piece of thread. And since this is a lace weight and a worsted weight together, it really doesn't make that big of a difference in my stitching. Now when you hold two worsted weights together or something like that, now that can be a little more cumbersome, because you've got but you'll be using a bigger hook too, so it wouldn't really, once you get going, it's just like you're working with one piece of yarn most of the time for me. This is kind of what the stitches look like after you touch that. Does anybody get this to focus better? There we go. So it just gives you a very interesting fabric when you're stitching, and I can't wait to stitch this up into my jacket. I have another project I need to finish before I do that. I've just been playing with the yarn and getting it ready. But that's all you do. You're really just holding two pieces together, and you can do that with any yarn you want to really. One thing you want to pay attention to is the care for each yarn, because the silk mohair is hand wash only. Now the acrylic is machine washable, but I would hand wash only this, whatever I make out of this, because of the silk mohair, right? So you want to use the care instruction for the one that has the, well, like if you have a hand wash yarn and one that's machine washable, you definitely want to take care of it as if it was all hand wash. I wouldn't be able to throw this into the washing machine without some major degrading of the silk mohair, and I would probably just lose all of that fuzz that I love so much. And it's possible that the strands could break down as well. Plus, because you have two different fibers in here, they're going to react differently to the water, and when they dry, the silk is going to want to tighten up around those stitches a little more. So hand washing and hand drying is going to be the best option for this, so I can keep the shape of my garment and keep everything looking just like this for as long as I can. So that's my little tutorial on stitching up two different kinds of fibers together. If you have any questions, you can just let me know in the comment. If there's something else you want to know about this, let me know in the comments as well. I'm going to put my email down below. I don't think I've done that on any of my other videos, but I'll go back and do that. So you can email me if you have questions as well. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more things like this, or I also do sewing ones as well, just go ahead and subscribe so you'll know when I have new posts come out and everything like that. And I think that's all for today. So I will see y'all later.